These are onigiri, essentially rice balls stuffed with protein, ideally formed into a clean triangle shape, and served with a signature piece of nori across the bottom. Stick around to see the secret behind just how to make these amazing little guys.
Hi there y'all, I'm Tom, and this is Empty Pantry Entrees, a place where you can learn all the skills you need to make delicious creations from only the odds and ends in your pantry. And today we're making onigiri, the delectable Japanese stuffed rice balls that serve as a perfect alternative if you're trying to find something new for lunch. My inspiration for making this video is based entirely off of the fact that I saw one of my favorite small YouTube cooking channels, Maiko, link in the description below. He made some incredibly mouth-watering onigiri. And on top of that, Maiko has some of the most incredible videography that I've ever seen, so if you really want to check out some amazing shots as well as some great recipes, you guys really need to check out his channel. There's no other way around it. But enough of me yammering on about some of my favorite small YouTube cooking channels. I think it's about time for us to move on.
We're starting things off today with sushi rice, as it's the most important. Guess we're feeling a bit aggressive today with the rice now, aren't we? As I was saying, your rice is incredibly important for this dish, so try your best to get a high quality sushi rice. We're looking for a short grain white rice with a relatively high starch content to allow the cooked rice to stick together when formed. But too much starch can be a problem too, so we're going to thoroughly wash about 3 cups of our sushi rice in order to remove a large portion of the excess starch. The way to tell if you're done washing your rice is to collect a cup of water through the strainer and see how cloudy it is. Look at it here in the beginning, it's rather opaque, you know? As you rinse your rice for a minute or two, it'll get considerably clearer. Just be patient. Collecting a cup of water now after the rice has been rinsed, you can see my fingers through the bowl much more clearly. That is a well-rinsed rice. Here, let me give you a side-by-side shot so you can see the difference directly. You can't see through the water hardly at all on the before image. Drop that now rinsed rice into your rice cooker and ladle in about 4 cups of water. Every rice cooker and brand of rice is going to be a little bit different, so I would highly recommend reading the instructions right off of your bag and making a judgment call from there. Then, I personally like to add in a small portion of rice wine vinegar into the rice to season it a bit while it cooks. Just be careful not to add too much or your rice will become overly gummy. But for now, while that steams away, let's talk about fillings, which means we're going to be talking again about mayo.
As far as I'm aware, there's only 2 main differences between American mayo and Japanese mayo, and it mainly comes down to the fact that Japanese mayo uses the egg yolk in particular, whereas the American egg uses the entirety. The fact that the Japanese mayo only uses the egg yolk leads to a slightly darker pigmentation than the American version, as well as a thicker and creamier sort of richness to the mayo itself. Additionally, the Japanese mayo alternative uses rice wine vinegar or apple vinegar in particular, rather than the American version, which uses distilled white vinegar. Regardless, I'm charging forward in this recipe using the American mayo rather than the Japanese mayo, but feel free to do whatever you want if you try to make this one at home.
Yeah, whatever he said. He probably knows what's going on. And in terms of spicing it up, we're combining about a 3-to-1 ratio of mayo to sriracha. For the first of today's fillings, we're going to be using shredded chicken, which for me means boiling a hunking block of frozen chicken breast. No reason to use a fresh breast. We're gonna be boiling the hell out of it and covering it up in mayo. You think anybody's gonna be able to tell the difference? Boiled shredded chicken is boiled shredded chicken. Not much is going to change in that. Today, I'm going to be using about half of that breast and saving the rest for later. Maybe I'll make a chicken salad later in the week, but who knows. Toss that into a bowl and mix together with about 1 tablespoon of the sriracha mayo, and bam, you've made your first filling. Make sure to color coat these with sticky notes because man, once you make these onigiris and close them up, it is real hard to tell which flavor is which. Now onto the Crab Rangoon, which I'm showing my true American colors here and completely butchering this Japanese dish by throwing an obscene amount of cream cheese in. Into a bowl, we're adding 3 finely minced green onions, then about 4 to 5 ounces of imitation crab meat, which really at the end of the day is just minced and pressed white fish meat to make it look like crab, but that's a story for another time. On top of that comes a half a block of cream cheese and 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, aka W sauce, aka Worcestershire, aka the black tar heroine of umami flavoring in German Midwestern foods. Then on top of that, sprinkle a teaspoon of garlic powder for good measure and mix to combine, focusing real hard on restraining yourself from eating this entire bowl straight with a spoon. Scribble off a note for yourself in the future and move on to the hardest of them all. By now, your rice is probably finished up. Spread it out thin on a baking tray to get the maximum surface area and increase the cooling rate. You'll want a rice that is ever so slightly above room temperature when forming your onigiri. Speaking of which, you can see my setup here with the 3 fillings located on the left. First step is to wet your hands to avoid any rice stickage. Just a dribble, then a pinch of salt over your hand in order to add a bit of seasoning to the rice as you go. Then, off camera, you're gonna make a thin patty of rice around the size of your palm and scoop out a small amount of filling into the center. Just try not to go too overboard here. After that, close your fingers backwards into a fist and fold the sides up. Following that, roll between your hands and use the ridges of your hands to form the triangular shape that typically comes with onigiri. It may seem like a bit of a daunting task to get the forming down, but I promise you, after your first few, you're gonna get the hang of it and they'll look prettier and prettier. After you get through a sizable amount, if you're planning on serving your onigiri soon, you can cut a thin strip of nori seaweed to wrap around the base. This not only makes the presentation a bit neater, but it also works as a built-in finger guard for the sticky rice. Sprinkle on a bit of sesame seeds, black sesame seeds if you can get them because they provide a lovely contrast to the white rice, and serve it up with more of your delicious sriracha mayo. Dig in, because these onigiri are irresistibly good. Maiko's recipe for this really capitalizes on making something delicious from plain and simple ingredients. The only thing I really had to go out of my way to get was nori, and that you can find pretty much at any American grocery store over by the Asian section. But if you are more of a fried rice person, feel free to fry the sides of your formed onigiri in a touch of canola oil with a brush of soy sauce. This makes for a crispy and savory yaki onigiri, which is my personal favorite way of serving up the leftovers. They're not the most photogenic, but hey man, your taste buds cannot see, and I promise you, the yaki or fried onigiri are fantastic. Thanks for watching, y'all, and thanks again to Maiko for this incredible recipe. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you want to support this channel. That's all I have for this video. I'll see you all next time.